something you want to understand. You want to get a feel for how this works and how this might affect us as Black people around the world. Well, I get the distinct honor and opportunity to speak to brilliant Black people all over the place who have great ideas, like this sister who I'm going to bring in today. Her name is Miss Victoria Walker. Now, Victoria is joining us all the way from London. She is going to actually be one of the panelists in our event in London, which you can find out about at drboycelondon.com. So I want to ask my sister Victoria, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Dr. Watkins. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well. I'm really happy to talk to you because I want to tell everybody I had a quick conversation with Victoria. I didn't know her 10 minutes ago. And in that short conversation, it left me saying, okay, I want to know more. I want to hear more. Victoria has a background in private banking. She's been a part of deals for over $50 million, 50 million pounds, I guess. And she's, deep in the banking system, understands how banking works. And one thing about Victoria is that she's really, really excited about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and what that can do for people everywhere. And so I guess I want to start from the beginning, Victoria. Can you kind of give us some idea of your background as it pertains to finance and what brings you here?
Okay, so my journey in finance started quite early. Well, my interest in finance and economics started really early, from one of my earliest mentors. I was very big on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and this was back 13 years ago when I was sort of 16, 17. And he always said, if you really want to come out of your situation, you got to understand finance, business, but you got to understand finance. You got to understand how money works. So I think I built a curiosity from quite young to figure out how money worked. And I went to study finance in London, ended up changing it to business management, but was fortunate enough to be hired by a wealth management research firm. So we did a lot of intel, supplying banks with market intel, customer research, and all sorts of information, which opened me up how the banking system, especially the private banking system, the system where when we're trying to raise money for ventures and venture capitalists and high net worth individuals, where these individuals place their money and some of the strategies that they were adopting and changing to. So my career opened me up to not just the industry, but also individuals who work in, or who are high net worth individuals who, have lots of assets, and how they actually manage their wealth. And so what I realized was that amongst the 1%, as people call them, there was still a major distrust with banks themselves, because the banking system always creates bubbles. It has to, because money is lent out at debt at all times. And we will and continue to go through these periodic crashes, whether it's a housing bubble or a stock market crash. And what we've seen in 2008, we've come to a point where even investors are no longer having that trust in the fiat and banking system. So with that knowledge, when I discovered cryptocurrency and how the blockchain worked and the problems that it solved, not just for the actual high net worth and the rich, but for the general population, because we suffer from this sort of lack of wealth distribution, especially amongst our communities. And also we have, 70% of our population is unbanked. So we have a massive issue with how our economics have been played out just through the banking system. So with my understanding of it and seeing how Bitcoin and cryptocurrency could alleviate some of those problems, it caught my interest, and I have pretty much been dedicating my entire career and time to helping people understand how the blockchain and how cryptocurrency can help us all, really.
Okay, well, everybody who just came in, I see people are asking who I'm speaking with. I'm speaking to Miss Victoria Walker, and we're talking about money, finance, banking, and cryptocurrency. And also make sure, if you're on social media, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, anywhere, take a second, hit the heart button, give us some likes and thumbs up, and also make sure you subscribe. You've got to subscribe. because we're trying to have media that reaches Black people all around the world so we can control the narrative. Subscribe, share, tell your friends, make sure you're a part of the movement. So Victoria, let me ask you this. So you mentioned when we were talking, I hope it's okay if I bring it up and you can answer to the whatever extent you feel comfortable, but you mentioned that you saw some fraud within the banking industry, you saw corruption. And I know my doctor's in finance, so I'm aware of a lot of that as well. But I would love to hear from your point of view. What were some of the things you saw that people should be concerned about? You don't have to name names or anything like that, but what are some of the things that happen in the banking industry that we should be concerned and disturbed about?
Well, I think what people need to understand is the fractional reserve banking system. That in itself is just a flawed system. And when you see it in operation, which is, monetization systems, so where one person can put a deposit of, £1 million and then instantly make 100 million or generate 100 million to loan at interest. You see how money is created, money is manipulated, but also that it's monetized and manipulated only by a certain group that understand how to do this. And what we find is that this money that's being created is then put into the system where now they're going to buy companies who are then going to employ the people to now work these companies and only pay them enough so that they need to come back every month for more and more money. And so you see, when you understand the banking system from its inception, from the beginning of how banking is created and why it's been created the way it has, you get to understand that it is a complete illusion, the fiat system in itself, because money is not backed by anything right now. It is a complete illusion. And the fact that there's one centralized body that manages and has the power of pretty much the global economic situation, it's a major problem for us. And so in terms of fraudulent activity, I haven't witnessed anything as per se personally, but what I will say is that understanding the mechanics, especially behind the fractional reserve banking system, especially behind how state governments and banks interact with each other and the policies that are involved with that, and even with the law, and even how law ties into this, the system is just a complete fraud, and the people are the ones that pay the price of that. They pay the price.
Interesting. Well, in case people aren't aware, when Victoria talks about the fractional reserve system, and maybe you'd like to feel free to chime in, it's basically a law that's kind of applied all over the world, that the bank doesn't actually have to have your money on hand. They actually have to have a percentage of your money. So you may say, oh, I've got, $100,000 in the bank. No, you don't. They as soon as you put that money in the bank, they took about 80–90% of that money and they put it into other places. They've loaned it out. The benefit of that is that the economy speeds up. They're able to do more with their money, etc. The downside, though, is that a lot of what you're living off of is an economic illusion. You're saying, oh, I've got $100,000, and someone else, let's say that Victoria puts $100,000 in the bank, and they loan me $90,000 of that $100,000. Then Victoria says, oh, I've got $100,000 in the bank. And I say, oh, well, I've got $90,000 on hand, when really only $100,000 actually exists. And so in a way, they say that this speeds up the economy and makes it operate faster. The problem is the downside. If you have a crash, or if there's a panic and everyone tries to go back and get their money at the same time, then the bank is going to say, I'm sorry, we don't have your money. We're going to shut our doors. Good luck to you. So let me ask you this, Victoria, Miss Victoria Walker. I'm going to keep saying her name so everyone who comes in knows who I'm talking to. And by the way, Victoria is going to be in London mid-October. You can go to drboycelondon.com. And by the way, Iola's on here. I know you know Iola. And Iola's in here. I see her. Let me see if I can find Iola. There she is. Iola Williams. Are you friends with? Wait, sorry.
Sorry.
Are you friends with Iola?
Yes, Iola's my girl. Yeah, she's my girl. She's a beautiful, beautiful soul. Really amazing woman, Iola.
Yes, Iola is awesome. So We both send you major hearts, and she's sending hearts back to say hello. So let me ask you this. You know, so you see cryptocurrency, you know, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, you know, all the other coins are out there. You see that sort of as a great alternative to the banking system, mainly because when it's peer to peer and it's not sort of going through the central banking system. What are some of the benefits that you see with cryptocurrency as opposed to fiat currency?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's definitely to do with the decentralization and that there's no national ownership. You know, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, the blockchain is managed by the people. And I believe that because trade is such a key cornerstone to our economy and to our overall success as communities and the world, I feel that we should have more control over our own currencies. And I think the blockchain and cryptocurrency allows that. It gives us a platform and a tool so that even sub-communities and groups can create their own currency and their own tokens that can be of value. Because when we look at what money actually is, it's a medium of exchange. It's a token of value. And I believe that there is possibilities and opportunities to develop and create not just necessarily currencies, but even when you're looking at the smart contract with Ethereum, you know, there's so much possibility with what we can do in terms of better governance. I think it makes it easier as well for people to access banking facilities or transferring value. And I just think that overall, what the blockchain brings to both the business community and the wider world is just remarkable. And I'll give you an example. I went to an ICO launch, and one of the companies, they develop vaccines. They create some new diseases that come out. What happens is a team of doctors need to kind of start working on, you know, vaccinations and whatnot. What they can now do with the blockchain is that as soon as that vaccination is created, and basically they can actually do all the research in virtual reality as well, which is really cool. But as soon as the vaccination is being created, they've solved the problem, they know what they need, they can immediately put that onto the blockchain, and every doctor across the world can access that information. And
wow.
That information, yeah, instantaneously. So, I mean, from medical to, you know, legal contracts, sales of property and transfer of value. I think the security that the blockchain has, the accuracy that the blockchain can provide. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we've still got a long way to go with really getting this right, but the technology is developing really fast. We've had some of the best performing coins. And another thing why I like the blockchain is it's given access to anybody who's got sort of a computer background or some sort of technical experience to really create something great. Now, there's a brother called Chris True. He is the founder of the Stratus coin. Now, that coin has brought 150,000% return. You know, people have made millions from it. It generated £1 billion worth of revenue. Stratus created it's a blockchain development company, but they raised through their token, and they've created something really ingenious, which is sort of creating blockchains, a kind of side blockchain. And I won't get into the mechanics of it, but it's a really, really great idea. A lot of companies will want to adopt this technology, and he's raised this money through a coin. A brother from the community. There's another brother. He created storage.
Let me jump in and ask you. His name is Chris. You said Chris Stratus?
True.
Oh, Chris True. Okay, yeah. I want to write his name down because I'd like to look it up. 150,000%. Is that what you said?
Yeah, in 1 year. Yeah, that's how much the coins.
And what's the coin called? What's it called?
It's called Stratus.
Stratus. Okay. Sorry. Please continue. I just wanted to make sure that everyone got that. Y'all pay attention. Yeah. Money's being made out here.
Billions.
Don't wake up. Be woke. Woke means economically woke. You got to know where the money's at. This is a banker. She's been around the billions and the millions and all that stuff. Listen to people like this. Please continue, sister. I didn't mean to cut you off. My apologies.
No. So yeah. So and it's one of the best performing cryptocurrencies of our time. But again, it was a brother who created this. Storage, another coin created by a brother. that brought, I believe it was something like 94,000% return. But I'm talking these opportunities that are here, and these are just guys with really good ideas. As the blockchain's new, and we know that most businesses are going to start adopting the principles behind the blockchain. And let me just explain this so people maybe understand what a blockchain is. So the blockchain is very much like the internet. It's a protocol, and basically it's ledgers. It stores transactions. The blockchain stores the transactions in chronological order. So every time a transaction happens, it's logged in and it's secured with cryptography, sorry. So cryptography is a way of making sure that once it's in the blockchain, it can never be altered or changed. It's a permanent record. Right now, when we transfer records, they can be changed, they can be altered, pretty much like a Google Doc. Whereas the blockchain, this is secure, verified information that can be stored and not altered. Hence why Bitcoin and transfer of cryptocurrency is safer, because once it's in the blockchain, you can't reverse that. Someone can't hack and go into your Bitcoin blockchain and reverse all the transactions and move money anywhere. And we see that happen in a lot of banking. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to keep their money with their banks at times because of the amount of fraud. Again, people hacking accounts, going in and taking money out of accounts. And this is what affects a lot of the high net worths as well, is the banking fraud, insiders that know information and move money out here and there. So the blockchain does solve a lot of problems in terms of security for your assets. But yeah, on the other side, there's opportunity for people to really start looking at how can I profit from this emerging technology, and how can I also get involved as well? You know, how can I get involved in creating blockchain ideas?
Wow, this is really interesting stuff. Everybody, I'm talking to Miss Victoria Walker. Victoria is she is an expert in banking and cryptocurrency, and she's going to be joining us in London. We're going to have an event that you can learn about at drboycelondon.com. If you took part in the All Black National Convention, you will know that one of the things that we do to try to separate ourselves a little bit is we're big on learning, big on networking, big on action, you know, et cetera. We're big on developing economic wokeness. You know, being woke ain't just about, you know, screaming Black Power and yelling about whatever Donald Trump did to hurt your feelings. It's about really building community, building institutions, developing processes and procedures that allow us to come together, codes of conduct, et cetera. Because I'll tell you what, it's funny, Victoria, you know, I just think about it. I just realized this now. We just had the All Black National Convention here in the States. And, you know, I don't think Donald Trump's name came up more than one time, if it came up at all. Like, lived for 3 straight days. Black people got together. We talked about our community. We talked about us. We didn't worry about, nobody in that room seemed to feel that this person in the White House controls our lives. You know, we felt that we control our lives, you know, and I think that wealth is understanding wealth is one of the keys to doing that. And now let me ask you this, in terms of your experience with banking, I know you've been in the room with when, you know, multi-million-dollar deals are being done. What do you think are some things that a person might pick up from sort of hearing the wealthy kind of talk about what to do with their money, and or partnerships that are formed or how they structure deals? What are some things that regular people can learn about sort of how the wealthy people around the world accumulate power and protect their power by working together? What are some things you picked up?
Okay, so one of the major things that I found interesting was a majority of the high net worths that I met had made their wealth by building a company and selling it. That was a majority of them. Had built a company up and sold it, and they made millions. And then after that point, it was a case of wealth management, where they would now use that money to invest, whether it was into a new company, or whether they did property, or whether they had a trader or a private wealth manager who would manage those assets. And they were constantly on the lookout for ways to keep that money, making more money without them having to work for it. In terms of them putting into investments and what they looked for, the major thing was actually the leader of the organization or the company. They really, I would say, like colorism and stuff in the higher realm. I mean, there is racism, but a lot of these people do look for ideas. They want brilliant ideas, and so if you've got a brilliant idea and you've shown a strong capability that you can execute the project, you will get the money. I realized that a lot of it was down to their own, especially when they were doing sort of private deals and assessing opportunities based on, obviously you do your due diligence, they'll look at the business model. So yeah, I think the two things that I would pick up on is, one, a lot of wealth, we think it's generational, and there is a lot of people with generational wealth, but most of the high net worths that I worked with, so we're talking people with at least 10 million in assets or more, many of them got their money through business. And also, sorry, carry on.
Interesting. Well, what's interesting, Ms. Walker, is, I think a lot of people don't really understand that, that a lot of it does come down to confidence in acquiring the right skills. And what I mean by that is, I see a lot of people that don't accumulate anything because they've been convinced that because they're Black, they can't do it. I just tell people, if you spend all your energy thinking about why something isn't going to work, then you're going to achieve your goal. It's not going to work. And the funny thing is that most things, reasonable things that we try to do are possible. It's just the harder it is, the more it's going to be, the more work it's going to take to find the solution. So it's like if I come to you and I say, hey, Victoria, I'd like to climb Mount Everest tomorrow. You could probably give me a very long list of reasons why it won't work. But we know that it's not impossible to climb Mount Everest. It's just that, that it's not easy. And the thing is that if I sit and I just look at your list of reasons why it won't work, and I never take that next step of saying, okay, well, tell me how it can work, then I'm going to be so stuck on this that's going to define my possibilities. You're not helping me by telling me all the reasons why I won't make it. You're only helping me by telling me how I can get around the obstacles, and it can be intimidating because you can look and you look at the list of reasons why I won't make it. It's going to be a much higher list than all the reasons I will, because most people can't climb Mount Everest. So when you talk to our people about overcoming white supremacy and achieving your goal and building wealth, well, the list of reasons why you won't make it can be pretty high, but there's also this list of reasons, ways that you can make it. And it's not just a bunch of luck. It's not just, someone gave it to you. It's because you're spending more time focusing on this list than you're spending focusing on that list. And so, I personally think people can learn, from people like you. And so I want to ask you about this as well. When you see, when you've worked around, high net worth individuals and they talk about, preserving their wealth in the next generation, things like that. How important is estate planning in terms of protecting your wealth after you're gone? Did you hear many conversations like that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the services that I have in my business is creating trusts, because this is the thing. What people forget is that, many of these people plan for 3-4 generations. Like, they've already got a plan, they've already got a trust. So a trust is it's a vehicle which has a grantor, a beneficiary, and a trustee. And the trustee, the beneficiaries can be your children or family. But whilst the trustee of the estate is there, they can create stipulations of how, money or assets are meant to be divided. And you can create stipulations from as long as your arm or as little as you want. But they are vehicles that the wealthy use. And a lot of the time what happens is, when they're trying to really protect assets, they will create trusts upon trust upon trust to really bury their assets. They would take a forensic expert years to really work out who owns what. The trust is about one thing. It's okay. The trust is about one thing. It allows you to control the asset rather than own the asset. But as the trustee or beneficiary of the assets, you can benefit from them. And why people do this, especially in this country, I don't know how it works in America, but for example, when you inherit any property or assets, the government take quite a high percentage. I think it's up to 40% inheritance tax they'll take. Also, if you go into sort of nursing home or care homes as you get older, if you have more than £20,000 worth of assets, they will take that money out of your, well, take the money out of your care for the sale of your home. So there's lots of ways people, not to avoid paying your taxes, but there's ways people can shelter their assets. And this is what, you know, the high net worths and wealthy people do, so that they minimize their tax liabilities, they offshore their assets, they create trusts and different types of vehicles to hold their assets. So it allows them to control them, but not own them, because the liability comes if for any reason, you know, someone wants to come and say, look, you owe me, you, Dr. Boyce Watkins, owe me, and they want to take your house. If it's in a trust, the trust doesn't have the debt or whatever, so it's protected by that. But you as an individual can. And these are some of the things that I learned with some of my banking friends and individuals, and how they and why they protect their assets in vehicles like trusts.
Wow, well, I love it. Everybody, I'm talking to Miss Victoria Walker. She's a banking expert, a cryptocurrency expert, and an enthusiast, and she's going to be joining us in London. You can find out more about our London event in mid-October by going to drboycelondon.com. Also, if you want your children to be started on that journey to learning wealth, we have great programs for kids and adults. Our Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program, actually the next module we're developing, we've done real estate, we've done stock market investing, all that stuff for the kids. E-commerce, we just developed e-commerce for kids. All anything that you would find in a business school, we're creating it for kids, because we want our kids. My plan. Here's my plan. You want to hear my magical plan for Black people? Here's my magical plan for Black people. I believe that if we get all of our kids learning from college professors at the age of 7 or 8, then by the time they're 18 or 19, they're going to be light years ahead of all the other kids. We will become the exceptional race, which we already are exceptional in a lot of areas, but we're also going to be exceptional here. And I already know I'm already seeing it play out. Just give it about a decade, and you're going to really see some extraordinary young kids that are out there. So anyway, if you want to check into any of those programs, you can go to blackfinancialliteracy.com. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. So Victoria, let me ask you this. You know, I know you mentioned that you do business and things like that. Where can people learn more about your business, reach out to you, anything like that?
Okay, so right now I've got a little campaign going out, which is called the Bitmogul Group. And this is just an opportunity for people who are completely new to cryptocurrency and really want to just get started. Because cryptocurrency, there's so many ways you can profit from it, but you need to understand what it is. And one thing I always believe in, education is the most important thing, especially when you're becoming an investor. You know, you're a self-investor and you're starting small. Learn. So I set up the Bitmogul Group, which is the web domain is bitmogul.group. So it's bitmogul.group. And on there is a masterclass that I offer, which gives you just the full basics of, you know, what cryptocurrency is, how to set up wallets, how to do transfers, and just the basics. I mean, there is a lot of free information out there online, but I think for people who want to ask questions, learn some other strategies on how to multiply your Bitcoin, how to buy, because you can buy property with Bitcoin now, you can invest in property shares of Bitcoin. I share a few of my strategies that I use as well in the masterclass. So bitmogul.group, and Facebook. I'm really active on Facebook, so people can find me, Victoria Walker, and connect with me on there. And yeah, that's how people can find me.
Wow, I love it. So that's www.bitmogul.group. You guys can go check it out. Also, if you'd like to meet Victoria in person, she will be with us in London. You can go to drboycelondon.com to find out more. And also, you know, as you know, in the Black Business School, we love to bring in people like Victoria. So she doesn't know, but I'm going to actually invite her to come in and speak to our students and do a Q&A at some point, and maybe we can help support each other's businesses. And these are the kinds of partnerships you want to form.